1. Okay, so I'm a bowler. I was on a high school team, and a few days a week, we would go after school to an alley to practice. Well, the particular alley that was our home alley was extremely lazy, like only ever 2 employees at a time, for 32 lanes no less. Open no earlier than 4 every day, terrible customer service lazy. Well, we knew the owner pretty well, and he liked our coach, so they made an exception and opened early on our practice days just for us. Oh, and the coach was my dad, important later. So here the team is, walking into the freshly cleaned alley right after school, and I decide I need to take a quick whiz, so I excuse myself to the men's room. I go into autopilot, enter stall, zipper down, meat extracted from said zipper, and let flow. As I'm going, I am thinking about other things. You know, teenage things like girls and shit. Not really paying attention to the toilet. Suddenly an odd smell hit my nose. It smelled slightly of pepper, and I wondered how in the world I was smelling what the alley snack counter was cooking from the restroom. The smell started burning my nose more and more, until I decided to look down. I looked down to see a toilet overflowing with bubbles, and as I looked down, a wave of gas hit my face, making my eyes sting profusely. I started coughing, slowly dying because, as everyone knows, once you let loose the stream, you can't close until it's done. So for a solid 20 seconds I'm standing there, eyes and nose streaming, pissing into a bubbly, overflowing toilet. When I finally finished, I zipped up and got out of there so fast, I almost tripped. Of course, I was making quite the racket, so my team was staring into the bathroom as I exited, to see me crying profusely, bloodshot eyes and coughing. First thing my dad thinks and says is, "What happened? Did you light one up in there?" He was dead serious too. He has always thought I was a druggie, and still does to this day. Never even so much as touched weed. And that moment confirmed his fear. It was only later when I was looking up the symptoms of my extremely sore throat and dry eyes did I realize the alley must have used bleach to clean their toilets. And since we were the first patrons of the day, I peed straight into it. You pass ammonia through your system when you pee, and so that means I chemically gassed myself in a bowling alley's restroom. 2. I have seasonal allergies, where a week out of the year I get sudden, extremely bad dizzy spells. 3 days ago I started to have my dizzy spells for the season, and yesterday, Friday, I had a job scheduled from 3 months prior to go cap off some large gas pipes in a warehouse. I cancelled on them yesterday because I knew it would be unsafe for me to get on a ladder where I could get struck with a spell, so I rescheduled. This morning I felt like a rock star, and yesterday ended up being pretty decent as well. So I went out to the job site, got a parts list and called in for a helper to bring materials and a ladder. They sent the new labourer to me. The gas pipes were 20 feet high. We threw up the ladder, and just as I swing my head to look up, it throws me into a mad, twisting world of a dizzy spell. If you have never experienced a dizzy spell, do this. Stand up, spin, keep spinning, spin some more until you literally fall down. Now stand up and do it again, another one. Keep doing this until you get the sweats and feel like you're going to vomit and drop a number 2. You have now reached my level of vertigo. Now, I can't get on a ladder, so I tell my labourer to go up and check it out. He's an apprentice in training, no big deal. It's just capping a gas line which will be pressure tested anyway later. I went over to the wall, sat on the dusty warehouse floor, and tried not to sink into abyss. We waited 10 minutes, then I got up to hold the ladder for him. He gets up 5 steps and freezes. I ask what the problem is. He responds it looks high, and then begins to talk himself into doing it, but makes absolutely no progress over what feels like an eternity. He comes back down, then tries again, makes it up halfway, then freezes. Back down. I sat against the wall with my eyes closed, and he's pacing back and forth by the ladder. I believe he was coming to a self-awareness level with the universe, that he is possibly afraid of heights, even 5-foot heights. Wonderful. Now I'm dizzy as if I did the stupid teacup ride at Disneyland, that nobody truly likes, and the guy who brings me a ladder can't go up it. And I had to get this done today. I finally took some medication because this spell is lasting incredibly long and strong. About an hour now. We just waited it out until I felt like I could walk in a straight line. I hurried up the ladder, capped off one line and go to the next line to cap. Then I discover my wonderful labourer didn't bring all the other parts I explicitly requested him to bring from the shop. I went outside into the wind. It triggers my vertigo again, and I become as a drunken fool in this strip mall parking lot. I fumbled around my work truck for some fittings to make it work. Then I got back in, got up the ladder, carefully capped it with a goofy set of fittings. Still code, just looks weird. And got back down. I immediately fell to my knees and did those weird empty stomach burps and told the labourer I'm going to spew. He hands me a grocery bag on the floor, then points. There's a bathroom in the back. I zigzagged back to the toilet and spewed 4 times into it. Turned around and dropped a numero dos or something in there as well to top it off. I yelled for the helper to just start cleaning up. I'm on a customer's toilet, which is rule number 1, never use a customer's toilet. Door open in a vomit stank cloud, so I am beyond any sense of shame at this point. My labourer was just amazed at how brave I was, venturing up such a high ladder, and continued to try and talk to me this whole time about how he wants to be just like me. After a moment on the toilet, gathering myself together, I went to flush and it doesn't flush. I pulled the toilet lid off, reached in and made it flush manually. I then discovered the water for the toilet doesn't fill. Now I'm in this bathroom I shouldn't be in, on a loaded bowl, and I have to fix a toilet before the customer comes in, looking to see how it's going. My entire trade culminated to this moment. This was the point where my ability to fix a toilet was to be tested. I pulled up my drawers and let instinct take over. The toilet flushes wonderfully now. However, I discovered there's no toilet paper back in this room. My breakfast receipt was good enough. I rambled back out to my helper and found my customer. I acted cool and wrote a quick invoice and jumped into the labourer's truck and told him to take me home. As I laid down, my dispatcher called me and said the neighbouring business is pissed that I'm in a spot his customers need to park in now, on a Saturday, without vacant buildings on both sides. I haven't made up my mind when I'll go back. Hopefully I'll feel well enough to drive tonight. I'm at the point where there is little I care about other than being not dizzy. Now I'm laying on my bed in a spinning room with a bottle of Sprite. 3. So my story starts in around 2008 or 9. I was living with my dad, and without going into a big long story, I have high-functioning mental disorders that boil down to I am able to feed myself, clean myself, and even drive a car, but working a 9-to-5 job is out of the question. So my dad decided that in lieu of work, I should go to a group therapy school of sorts that works just like a regular grade school but with therapy instead. The place has all kinds of people, but important to my story is that it was mixed gender, so guys and girls could coexist there. With very few rules, in fact, there was even a married couple or two going there. So naturally, I wound up finding myself a smoking hot crazy girl to date. And it was amazing. Every day we would ditch our groups and go make out in the hallway. That is until stronger urges hit us. Like high tide at the beach, we were just flooded with hormones. So, where should we go to have some fun? The nearby bathrooms were filthy, and an easy way to get caught. Then it hit me. We were in a hospital. There were lots of bathrooms elsewhere. So off we went hand in hand to find the perfect bathroom to go do the nasty in. About 10 minutes later we found it, a unisex bathroom at the end of a long hallway, in the less often used doctor's area of the hospital. Not the doctor's lounge, but where there are doctor's offices. So we went in and locked the door. But something wasn't quite right. The room was full of sterile sealed specimen cups, and other things that made it a little awkward. But we didn't care. After using the condom I kept in my wallet, and having our fun, we got dressed and started the walk of shame back to the Looney Tunes section of the hospital. But didn't get far, as upon opening the door we were greeted by the smiling face of my counselor, who says he heard everything. But that's not the TIFU. That came when he told us the bathroom we just used was supposed to be for, get this, giving pee samples to be tested for STDs. Yep, that's where people with any number of unspeakable ailments go to get tested. And we just fucked in there. So anyways, I wasn't kicked out of the program for that, but I was forced to break up with that girl. So next time you're horny at a hospital, just don't, okay? Just don't. 4. So to preface, I'm a girl, and I work in St. Paul, Minnesota. At the time, my parents lived in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, about a 3-hour drive in between. I traveled home every weekend during the summer to help my mom with the farmer's market. This is the story of one of the worst and funniest moments of my life. With a decent-sized family driving back and forth every weekend and working at the farmer's market, I get pretty bad migraines sometimes. A week before this event happened, I had a horrible headache, and nothing was helping. My mom gets them too and has prescription pills to help her with it. I don't remember what these pills are called. Before I go on, I just want to say that I'm a huge believer in not taking other people's prescription medication. But because my migraine was so bad this time, I took half a pill and passed out. I woke up super drowsy a few hours later and drove the hour drive back to my apartment. During the drive, I kept falling asleep and swerving. I thought it was because I was just tired, but I made it back to my apartment and passed out. I felt great the next morning and proceeded with my week. Now come the following weekend and the night of my horror. I officially have the demon of migraines after the Saturday farmer's market and went in search of my mom's migraine pills after 4 ibuprofens do nothing to help. I eventually find her pills and took 3 pills. Yes, 3. I'm an idiot. I usually sleep in my old bedroom in the finished basement when I go home, but recently I've been sleeping in my sister's room. They had a large king-size bed and my 2 sisters sleep by the wall. My baby brother likes to sleep with me, so we squeezed him in between me, at the end of the bed, and my sisters. So the night proceeds and I'm dreaming that I'm spinning round and round and round and round. Then for some reason, I must have woken up, because I realized that I'm physically turning my body over and over and over on the bed. I can't stop because I don't know how to. But eventually I must have burnt out, and laid in bed just staring up at the ceiling. I must have found my phone because I noticed that it was 2 in the morning. An utter sense of fear came over me suddenly, and I seriously thought I was being possessed or something was trying to do me harm. Before I realized what I was doing, I was off the bed and went into my parents' bedroom next door. I knocked on the door and told my mom that I thought I was being possessed because spirits kept bothering me. My poor sleepy mom, who works way too hard, gets up and goes to the kitchen. In my culture, sleeping with a blessed knife under your pillow keeps the ghost at bay. To put it in the shortest terms. Mom returns with a knife wrapped in a towel and tells me to go back to bed. I put the knife under my pillow and laid in bed, stared up at the ceiling for a little bit. I must have got scared again because I suddenly realized that I was chanting verses in my language that keep spirits away between reciting Bible verses and demanding the demon leave my body. Anyway, at some point, I realized that I must be crazy when I thought I was being possessed and started laughing. At this point, I'm laughing out loud and giggling, I even reach over my baby brother in an attempt to wake up my sister, Susan, so I could tell her what was so funny. Eventually I passed out because I was too exhausted. I remember trying to figure out where or how I picked up this demon, because I've spent a lot of my life protecting myself from spirits, so there was no possible way anything could have followed me home. When I woke up the next morning, my hands felt like pins and needles, and the first thing that came into my head was that everything that happened the night before must have been because I took one too many pills, and must have been super high. My mom comes to check in on us and asks me if I was okay. Before I could say anything, Susan throws a pillow at me and says, "You scared the crap out of us last night. So moral of the story, don't take too many prescription migraine pills, because you'll think you're getting possessed and try to wake up your sisters." My sisters were awake the whole night, but were too scared to say anything or move. 5. It started when I asked a friend of mine, who we shall call Anne, to prom. She asked if we'd just be going as friends. I said no. We'd get married immediately afterwards, and I'd begin producing her young at an average of 12 per litter. She gave me a weird look after that, possibly because that was a weird thing to say. So I clarified that yes, we'd be going as friends. Duh. And I swear to you that I wasn't lying. I really didn't want anything more from her than friendship. Anyway, after that little clarification, she said yes. Time went by, and it started to become apparent that she was avoiding me. I figured I could push the issue, or I could leave it be. After some thought, I decided to leave it be. Either it would fix itself, which would be nice, or the problem would reach crisis level as we got closer to prom, and she'd wind up spilling her guts. Either way, it had put her in control of the situation. Couple days before prom, she finally spills her guts. She starts with the, "Sorry I've been avoiding you" thing, and I just kind of go, "Yeah, it's okay, but why?" And she explains she's just started a new relationship. Oh, okay. Yeah, that'd put her in a bind. That could be uncomfortable. So I kind of wait for her to explain what needs to be done, figuring she has some sort of plan in mind. But instead she keeps on going, explaining that her new relationship is with another classmate, who we shall now call Stephanie. Which blew my mind for a few seconds because I had no idea that Anne was gay. Technically, I'm not sure if she's gay per se, but I know she likes women, so she might be part of some other sexual orientation that includes women who like women, like bisexual or transsexual or gay? I don't know, I don't keep up on this stuff. So she explains that, but she hasn't really said what she's wanted, so I'm still waiting for a response. And I guess she was still waiting for a reaction because we sat there for a pretty good 30 to 40 seconds or so before she said, "Well?" And I said, "Well, what?" And she says, "Well, do you have anything to say?" And I say, "Not really. When I said just as friends, I meant just as friends. If you're still cool with going, I'm still cool with going. Otherwise, we can cancel and life will go on." She said she was still cool with going. So when prom rolled around, we met up with our prom group and began the start of what turned out to be one of the most interesting days of my life. The first part of the whole thing, dinner, was pretty nice. Everyone was kind of shy and awkward with each other, but me and Anne were already good friends, so we chatted and cackled and blew bubbles in our soda. After that came the dance, which is where the wheels finally popped off. See, I have 3 very specific skills, and one of those 3 very specific skills is dancing. I'm good at dancing. I love it. So I'm dancing, having a good time, and I notice that Anne is not dancing. She is texting, which bothers me a little. First, because texting in the middle of the dance seems to be a little bit rude, and second, because this is one of the few moments that my limited repertoire of skills will allow me to be cool. So I sit down next to her and very subtly hint that I would like her to dance. "Hey, you should go out there and dance." Suave as hell, DH. Suave as hell. Which she responds with a single elegant word, "Can't." One-word response, that's a bad sign. Dare I press it further? Dare I? I do. Why not? I'm texting Stephanie. How should I handle this smoothly? That's cool, but right now we're at a dance, so you should dance. Perfectly done. Statement, qualification, reasoning. An argument like that could convince a jury that OJ was innocent. Except it didn't succeed in convincing her to dance at all. Instead, she snapped at me and said that she thought we were just going as friends. And I said that we are just going as friends, but I'm a friend who likes to dance. And she glared at me and I glared at her, and we both kind of sit there, slightly miffed at each other. I could have gone back to dancing, but true dancing requires a kind of peppiness that I just didn't have at that moment. So I sat by her, grumpy, and she texted away on her phone, grumpy, and a minute or so rolls by before Stephanie shows up. Now, in case you forgot, Stephanie is Anne's girlfriend. Anne is also my date. Now, further adding to the weirdness of this little event is the fact that Stephanie does not know that I know that her and Anne are in lesbians together. So Stephanie shows up with her own date in tow, a man whose name I do not remember, but who I have always simply called 4-Foot Ugly. And she goes over to Anne and says, "Hey, can you help me adjust my makeup?" And Anne says, "Oh, sure." And they leave. I get the message. I know I've been ditched. And while my miffed level has risen from Category 1 to Category 2, I at least know that I can wander freely now. I don't have to wait by my date. So I wander over to the refreshment table and decide to see if I can try to eat all the brownies at prom. I'm totally not sure why I did this. It might have been a passive-aggressive act against the world. I might have wanted to escape my miffedness with treats. I might have just figured, what the hell, let's eat a ton of brownies. In any case, this single event changed the entire course of the night from bad to incredibly bad. It's actually fantastic because, as it turned out, someone, some genius, some evil genius, some Mephistopheles to my Faust, had decided to sneak some spiked brownies into the tray. So I start on the brownies. I make it through the first layer of the 3, and I become vaguely aware of someone staring at me. I turn around to see who it is, and sure enough, it's 4-Foot Ugly, maybe 6 feet back, just staring at the back of my head. Part of me is thinking, geez, if he asks me to help him adjust his makeup, I'm going to walk out of this gym, down the street, and just keep on going. I'll become some vagabond wanderer, and it'll all be because of this kid. The other part of me is thinking, oh, what the hell, let him stare at me. If I'm going to eat 8,000 calories worth of brownies, I might as well have a witness to the destruction that I wreak. So I keep on eating the brownies, and I start to feel really weird in the middle of the event. And after that, my sense of time isn't really reliable. It feels like 2 or 3 hours go by total before I manage to finish all the brownies, and I'm sitting there, the worst combination of gorged and baked, when 4-Foot Ugly taps on my shoulder and I turn around, braced for the makeup question, when instead he says, "When do you think they're coming back?" And it clicks into my head that this poor guy doesn't know what happened to him. He has no idea he's been ditched. Which gives me 2 options: break the harsh truth to him, or let him believe in the myth he clearly wants. If I was the kind of man that my father was, I'd have said, listen, she's gone, they're gone, they're not coming back. You go out there, you get on the dance floor, you have a good time anyway. But don't wait for them, because they're gone. Instead, because I'm not the man my father is, and am in fact something lesser, I said, hey, maybe it's that time of the month. And he just nodded his head and looked relieved, as if that explained everything. Wow. Everyone in the world ought to feel jealous of this guy's future wife, because no matter what happens, all she needs to do is say that it's that time of the month. It just makes sense in his world. He could come home, find 7 dead Jehovah's Witnesses in his living room, and all his wife would have to say is, something something my period. And he'd just shrug his shoulders like, "Oh, yep, that makes sense." But moving on. At first, I just kind of wander off and go back to dancing, because I'm good at dancing even when my gut sticks out, like a grape on a toothpick. However, after some ambiguous period of time, I start to feel really overwhelmed by all the lights and the noise. So I went out of the gym and I sat down in the parking lot and tried to maintain my location in the space-time continuum. Eventually, someone from the prom finds me and says, "Hey, we're leaving. Wait, where's your date?" And I said, "I really have no idea." So they sent me to find her, which meant going back into the dance, which was an extremely disorienting experience, but one that I did manage to accomplish. I then proceed to wander around, hoping to find her, which worked, surprisingly. I find her and Stephanie slow dancing in the corner. There were two other details that caught my eye, both of which made me kind of sad. The first was that 4-Foot Ugly had found them, but still hadn't caught the hint. He was just sort of orbiting around them, waiting for his turn to dance. The second was that their lipstick had changed colours. Anne was pretty conservative. She wore red lipstick. Stephanie was a little more flamboyant. She wore blue. Now they both wore a sort of purplish mix. Nice. I tapped her shoulder. Said the group was leaving. She said she'd get a ride home with Stephanie. That didn't bother me much. Truth be told, I'd been kind of worried about how I was going to get home, considering how weird I felt. I wandered my way back to the parking lot and convinced a friend of mine to drop me off at my place, so I could sleep the brownies off. When I woke up, I biked back to the school with my keys and drove the car home. I never talked to Anne after that, but it was senior year's prom, so it wasn't a big deal. We all went our separate ways after that. At least I managed to get a good story out of it before the end. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Embarrassing Stories, episode 40. Thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. And also thank you very much to my subscribers who sent stories in for me to narrate. That was stories 3 and 4, I believe. Okay, let's see. This will be Saturday, you guys get this. I've decided this Sunday we're going to get another Bad Dates video. Working on doing another Neckbeards in the Wild as well. I've almost got enough for that, but no promises when it'll be out. So, Bad Dates it'll be for Sunday. I hope you guys are going to have a pleasant weekend ahead of you. I've got a few odd jobs and things to do around the house. I've got to get one of my rooms cleared out because there's lots of junk in it. And it is mostly junk. You know that kind of thing when you buy something new and you think, well, I'd better keep the box for just a couple of weeks in case anything goes wrong and I need to chuck it out. So the box usually goes in that room and tends to get forgotten about because I never go in it. And oh my god, it's a mess to the point that you could barely even get into it. So I've begun tearing down old cardboard boxes, getting them in the paper bin. That'll get picked up on Monday. So I'll be finishing up the rest of that the weekend, getting all the rubbish bagged up just ready to get trashed. And then that room should actually theoretically be habitable again. Not that it needs to be, but it's good to have the option. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.